Ever feel like you're completely invisible? Meet Frank. He's celebrating his birthday with a slice of pie and a lone candle. But when a moment of simple kindness gets twisted into internet drama, a few folks learn the hard way that some people are a lot more than meets the eye, especially if they've worn a uniform. Hello everyone, now we begin with something a little colder than usual, a rainy evening, a half-empty diner, and a man sitting alone at a corner booth with a paper cup of coffee and a flickering candle stuck in a slice of plain pie. The kind of man no one notices anymore. His coat is too worn, his beard too long, and his boots, if you really looked, are military issue from another decade. You'd probably glance once and look away. But not her. You probably won't survive this story the way you think, because it's not about war wounds or battlefield glory. It's about what people do when they think no one is watching. And what happens when someone is. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your city and your local time in the comments. I want to see where this story finds you. Now, relax, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get into today's story. The man's name is Frank Miller, 73. No one knows that, though. Not Brenda, the diner owner who half smiles when she takes his coins. Not the three young adults who burst in that night, dripping rain and sarcasm. Kyle, Liam, and Jessica. And certainly not the internet, which would soon chew his name into meme-sized chunks of ridicule. Frank's birthday had become a ritual of modest resistance. One pie. One candle. One memory held close, maybe a letter from someone long gone, folded and smoothed 1,000 times. He didn't ask for discounts, didn't beg, just came in, quiet as dusk, ordered his usual, and sat like a ghost in plain sight. But that night, Kyle noticed him. "Hey Jess," Kyle grinned as he nudged her, pulling out his phone. "Check out Grandpa over there. Looks like he's on a date with a candle." Frank didn't flinch. He'd survived worse than bad jokes and cheap phones. He just looked down, touched the edge of the pie crust with his spoon, and tried to stay invisible. Sarah saw it. Not the pie. Not the candle. The way he swallowed his breath like a man used to choking down humiliation. She'd seen him before, always quiet, always polite. Never asked for anything. She took a second plate from the counter. Walked over. Set it gently in front of him. A fresher slice, this one with whipped cream. No charge. Just a smile. "Happy birthday," she said, soft as steam. Someone should say it. Frank blinked. Once. Twice. Looked at her like she'd just handed him a folded flag. Kyle was recording. "Hey, world. We got ourselves a love story here," Kyle whispered into his camera, zooming in on Frank's stunned face. "Homeless Romeo gets birthday pie from Diner Juliet. Bet she's hoping for a tip and buttons." He didn't post it right away. That came later. Kyle went to Brenda, the diner owner. "Hey, just FYI," Kyle began, all concern and fake maturity. "Your waitress is handing out freebies to random homeless guys. Might want to check your profit margins." Brenda didn't look up. She knew Kyle, knew his family. But she also knew that every bad review was a drop of poison. Her diner had survived a pandemic, staff shortages, a grease fire. It couldn't survive bad press. "Thanks, Kyle. I'll talk to her," she said, wiping her hands on a towel that had seen too many nights like this. Frank left without finishing the pie. Something in him had shifted. Like the kindness was heavier than the mockery. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the street was still slick with reflections. He didn't notice Kyle still filming through the window, didn't know that in less than 24 hours, millions would know his face. The video hit like a rock through glass. First the laughter. Then the comments, modern saints, giving out diner food to bums. Hope he paid in PTSD. LOL, Grandpa got game. The worst weren't the mean ones. They were the ones that pretended to care. Sad, but let's be real, if we helped every vet like this, we'd go broke. Brenda called Sarah into the back the next morning. "I can't have you giving things away," she said, her tone brittle. I paid for the pie myself, Sarah replied, still in her apron. That's not the point, Brenda said. You're all over the internet. I need to protect this place. You're firing me? Sarah asked, voice caught between shock and disbelief. Brenda didn't answer. She just turned away. The bell above the door jingled as Sarah walked out into a new silence. Frank wasn't there that morning. He didn't come back that week. Where he went, no one knew. But the street knows how to make proud men vanish, and when a man like Frank vanishes, nobody hears it, not at first. But someone was listening, not a teenager. Not a troll, a man in uniform, an old one, sitting in a different city, on a different night, watching the video someone sent him with a note. Sir, doesn't this guy look like Miller? From the 407th. Colonel David Carter leaned forward, froze the frame, not the face. It was older, bruised by time. But the hands, the ring, the posture, the way he tucked his shoulders before swallowing humiliation, that was him, had to be, the man who built bridges in deserts, who fixed a transport in the middle of a sandstorm, who disappeared after his discharge and never said goodbye. Frank Miller wasn't just a homeless man in a diner, he was a brother. And now the colonel was coming. Colonel Carter didn't wait long. Within hours of seeing the video, he was on the phone with someone who knew how to trace ghosts, Major Emily White, sharp-eyed and known for remembering details most people forgot, picked up on the second ring. You sitting down, Major? Carter asked, should I be? She replied, already pulling up her database. He sent her the video. Silence on the other end. Then, that's Frank Miller. You sure? Look at his left hand. Ring finger. He always wore that unit ring, remember? I remember. Major White cross-checked records. Frank had been honorably discharged over 20 years ago. Served as an engineering logistics chief, one of those backbone soldiers everyone needed but no one talked about. He'd vanished after his wife passed. No address on file, no family. Just a trail of silence. This video went viral for the wrong reasons, Emily said. But maybe we can make something right. They packed their bags that night. Meanwhile, the internet was still frothing. The video had mutated. Reaction clips. People reenacting the pie scene with sarcastic commentary. Influencers faking kindness to the homeless for likes. One even claimed Frank was an actor planted by Sarah for clout. Brenda was drowning. Every Yelp review started with the same mocking phrase, "Welcome to Frank's Diner." Some criticized her for letting it happen. Others condemned her for firing Sarah. Kyle's video had backfired. But his ego refused to see it, just free press, right? He joked in a live stream. Bet the homeless dude got more attention than he ever did in his life. His followers laughed. But the backlash had begun to crack the surface. Liam, who hadn't laughed as much that night, sent Sarah a quiet message, "Sorry. I didn't say anything when I should've." She didn't reply. Because while the internet fought over who was the real villain, Sarah was applying for jobs and wondering if decency was still employable. Frank, meanwhile, was sleeping in the back of a broken-down van behind a recycling center. He'd left the diner the night after the video blew up, sensed the tension in the air, saw Sarah wasn't there, and assumed the worst. The one moment someone reached out to him had ended in someone else's punishment, so he retreated. Old habit, trained behavior. Engineers didn't confront, they reinforced from behind the lines. If something broke, they fixed it. If someone fell, they carried them, but no one was carrying Frank now. He pulled the ring off his finger the night Sarah was fired. Tucked it inside the lining of his coat, right above the heart. You don't wear pride when it hurts someone else. But fate, let's call it justice wearing combat boots, was about to come knocking. It was noon when Colonel Carter and Major White arrived at the diner. Brenda looked up from the register, already expecting some customer complaint or news crew. Instead, two officers in full dress blues walked in like a reckoning. She blinked. "Can I help you?" "We're looking for a man," Carter said, pulling out a photo, an old one. Frank, 20 years younger, standing in front of a half-built base. grinning next to a transport vehicle covered in dust. Brenda stared. That's him. That's the guy from the video. White nodded. We thought so. His name is Frank Miller, former senior logistics chief, 407th Engineering Battalion, served with distinction, multiple overseas deployments, and from what I hear, he came here on his birthday. Brenda's mouth opened, but no words came. We're also here to ask, Carter continued, voice low but firm, why a man like that was publicly humiliated while trying to eat a piece of pie. And why a young woman was fired for showing basic decency. The silence in the diner felt like judgment itself. I didn't know who he was, Brenda finally said. That's the point, White answered. You didn't ask. Brenda looked down. It got out of control. The video went viral. I panicked. I'm sure you did, Carter said. But now you'll help us make it right. How? You still have contact with the kids who filmed it? Brenda nodded. Kyle comes in all the time. He thinks this is funny. Call him, Carter said. Tell him he needs to be here. Bring the others too. Today. We're not asking. Brenda hesitated. What if they say no? White gave her a smile that could cut steel. We have ways of making sure they say yes. That afternoon, the table turned. Kyle showed up with his usual swagger, Liam and Jessica trailing behind like kids walking into the principal's office. The moment they saw the uniforms, the bravado cracked. What is this? Kyle asked, fake laughing. This, Carter said, is your chance to face what you did. He played the video. This time, there was no laughing. Frank's face, frozen mid-blink. Sarah's hand reaching out with the pie. The candle's flame flickering in the corner of the screen like a witness. Kyle looked away. Do you know who that man is? Carter asked. He's some guy. He's a soldier, White said. He kept supply lines running under fire. He saved units by fixing what others couldn't. He's the reason a dozen people came home. And you mocked him. Publicly. Gleefully. Jessica wiped her eyes. Liam swallowed hard. Kyle said nothing. You owe him, Carter said. You owe Sarah. You owe the idea that respect doesn't have to be earned twice just because someone looks different now. And for the first time, Kyle didn't have a comeback, because justice had finally walked into the diner. You don't expect to cry in front of strangers in a diner. Especially not with a pie case humming behind you and the scent of burnt coffee hanging in the air, but Liam's voice cracked first. A quiet I'm sorry spilled out of him like a leak under pressure. Jessica followed, her posture deflated, no filters now, no angles. Just remorse on raw display. We thought it was funny, she said, barely audible. But it wasn't. It was cruel. Kyle stood stiff, eyes darting. He still wasn't ready to save. Colonel Carter didn't press him. Not yet. Where is Frank now? Major White asked Brenda. I don't know. He stopped coming in. Her voice shook. After Sarah got fired, he just disappeared. Carter turned to Kyle. Then you're going to help us find him. Kyle blinked. How am I supposed to? You posted the video. You want attention. Good. Use your clout to do something right for once. Post again. Ask people where he went. Ask the same audience that laughed to help find the man they mocked. And for once, Kyle couldn't hide behind sarcasm. He did it. He filmed a short video right there in the diner, less confident now, no flashy edits, no smug tone. This is Kyle Thompson. I made a mistake. I recorded a man I didn't understand. A man who turns out to be a veteran who served this country with honor. I mocked him, and someone kind got punished because of it. If anyone has seen Frank Miller, please let us know. We want to make this right. The video exploded. The internet loves a twist, and this was the full circle arc they didn't know they needed, but somewhere in that flood of replies, someone tagged a location. Pretty sure I saw this guy sleeping behind the recycling yard on 8th. Gave him a sandwich 2 nights ago. It was sunset by the time they found Frank. He was sitting on an overturned crate, staring at the cracked sky like it owed him an answer. His coat was pulled tight against the breeze, and the old ring was clutched in his palm, not on his finger. Colonel Carter approached slowly, like you would a sleeping dog you didn't want to startle. Frank? Frank turned, saw the uniform. For a moment, his mind reeled. Then recognition flickered. Carter. Damn right, Carter smiled. Didn't think I'd find you behind a dumpster. You used to run entire base ops from a folding chair and a thermos. Frank chuckled, gravelly and tired. Was easier when I had knees that worked. White stepped forward, voice gentle. We saw the video. We know what happened. Frank stiffened. Don't worry about it. But we do, Carter said. Because you mattered to us. You still do. Frank shook his head. I didn't want trouble. That waitress, she didn't deserve what happened. I should have walked out when they started mouthing off. No, White said. They should have known better. And they do now. Frank looked away. What's the point, David? I'm just a ghost in this town. A coat and a memory. Carter crouched to eye level. You're more than that. You're the man who rerouted an entire convoy through a sandstorm and kept 3 platoons from starving. You patched together bridges under enemy fire. You held broken pieces of a system and made them work. You think anyone cares? I do, Carter said. And so do a lot of people now. Frank's eyes brimmed. I just didn't want to be forgotten. You're not. Not anymore. They brought Frank back to the diner. Brenda stood by the door, apron in hand, her mouth trembling as he stepped in. I'm sorry, she whispered. Frank gave a small nod. You were scared. I get it. I shouldn't have been. I should have trusted what I saw with my own eyes, that you were kind, respectful. Just a man wanting to be remembered on his birthday. Sarah was there too. Brenda had called her, begged her to come. She'd almost said no, but when she saw Frank walk through the door again, saw the hesitation in his steps, the exhaustion in his eyes, she knew why she was needed. Hey, birthday boy, she said gently, sliding a plate across the counter. This time, a full slice of pie. Warm, with a candle already lit. Frank blinked. I don't. She took his hand, helped him sit. You deserve this. No cameras, no spectacle, just a quiet moment. And a promise that this time, kindness won't be punished. Frank stared at the flame, it danced without shame. And for the first time in years, he let himself smile. Carter stood to one side, watching it unfold. Then he turned to Kyle and the others. You want to help? He asked. They nodded, then listened to his story. Not just to post it. Not for likes. Just listen. Then maybe, if you're lucky, you'll carry some of it forward. Kyle sat down across from Frank. No phone out. No smug grin, just a kid facing a man who'd lived 1,000 lifetimes in silence. What happened to you, sir? He asked softly. Frank hesitated, then sighed. I came home. My wife was sick. She passed before we could start over. I didn't have kids. No one left. I worked odd jobs until the injuries caught up. VA got backed up. Next thing I knew, the world moved on. He looked up. I never asked for pity. Just a little dignity. And that line landed like a hammer in the room. Just a little dignity. You couldn't scroll past that. The air in the diner was different now. You could feel it shift the moment Frank finished speaking. Not with fanfare, not with applause, but with silence. The kind of heavy, respectful silence that says we hear you even when no words are said. Sarah reached for the coffee pot and poured him a fresh cup, her hand steady, her eyes misting over. Brenda stood behind the counter like she had 100 times before, but now, the lines around her eyes weren't just from stress. They were from realization. The look of someone who finally understood that a reputation isn't protected by fear. It's built on truth. Colonel Carter turned to her and said it plainly. You have a choice now. You can be the place that fired a kind girl to please a mob. Or the place that helped make things right. Brenda didn't flinch. Sarah, she said quietly, the job's yours again. With a raise. And a written apology, if you'll accept it. Sarah looked at Frank. He gave a small nod. Only if she gets one of those little Employee of the Month plaques. A few chuckles broke the tension. Brenda smiled through her shame. Done. But it wasn't over. Carter wasn't here for symbolic gestures. He'd seen too many of his brothers-in-arms vanish from the radar of society once their utility ran out. Frank's case wasn't unique, but this time, they could do something. We've arranged housing, Major White told Frank. A studio, near the lake. Safe. Clean. Rents covered by a support fund. You'll also have full medical evaluation, VA appointments lined up, and someone to check in weekly. Frank blinked. Why would you do all that? Because you served. And because silence shouldn't be your legacy. Frank shook his head slowly, emotions catching up. I don't know how to start over. You don't have to, Sarah said softly. You just start small. Coffee, sunlight, a real bed. And you go from there. Jessica stepped forward next. Can we help somehow? Carter looked her over. Volunteer. At shelters. At VA clinics. Hear more stories like Frank's, without cameras. Kyle shifted awkwardly. Can I talk to him alone? Frank gave a faint shrug. Go ahead. They sat near the window. You could still hear the diner hum in the background, but it was like the world faded out for a moment. I wanted to humiliate you, Kyle said quietly. I saw someone lonely, and I thought, if I laughed first, it wouldn't feel so pathetic. Frank tilted his head. And now? I realize you're the man I hope to be. If I ever grow up. Frank didn't answer right away, then he said, you've still got time. Just don't waste it chasing noise. Kyle's eyes glistened. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just listen next time. Outside the diner, the air was cooler, spring brushing into town like a promise. Frank stood in the fading light, coffee in hand, staring down the street he used to walk every morning. He could feel the ache in his knees, but for the first time in years, it wasn't the only thing he felt. He wasn't invisible anymore. Behind him, Sarah locked up the diner, her apron folded over one arm. You doing okay? She asked. I think so, he said. Feels strange. Being seen. You were always seen. Just not by the right eyes. Frank nodded. You saved my birthday, you know. I didn't do much. You did more than most. One small act. That's all it took to crack the shell. He looked out at the street again. I used to think the world owed me quiet. That I was finished talking. But maybe the story doesn't end just because you stop telling it. Sarah smiled. Then start telling it again. The next week, Brenda organized something new. A veterans table, a corner of the diner reserved for anyone who had served, with free coffee, hot meals covered by a growing list of donors, and a hand-painted sign that read, "You are remembered here." Frank was the first to sit there. Others followed, men with worn jackets and faded tattoos, women with upright posture and quiet strength. They came in slowly, one by one, sat with him, talked, laughed, shared the silence of understanding. Sarah became their honorary daughter. Coffee never ran dry. Kyle returned too. Just to listen. He asked questions. Sometimes he even washed dishes after hours. Carter and White stayed in touch, checking on Frank weekly, connecting other veterans to Brenda's diner, turning it into something more than a business. It became a lifeline. One afternoon, weeks later, Frank brought in a box. Inside were photos, yellowed edges, black and white memories. Soldiers under tents, laughing in the sand. A group shot with Carter in the center, younger, prouder, less gray. He laid them out on the counter. Brenda, Sarah, Kyle, and a few curious patrons gathered around. This was the real stuff, Frank said. Not medals, not ceremonies, just moments. He picked up a photo. This one. We just finished building a field bridge from scrap in 90 minutes. Saved a convoy. We celebrated with canned peaches and dirt coffee. People smiled. This, he said, holding up another, was the last day before discharge. I didn't want to leave. But I knew if I stayed, I'd only see more of them die. A hush fell over the group. Frank looked around. People like to think peace is quiet. It isn't. Peace is loud. It's made of 1,000 small fights, against loneliness, against forgetfulness, against the temptation to look away. He set the photo down, and sometimes, he added, peace is a slice of pie with a candle on it. Just enough to say, you still matter, and that's all anyone really wants, to still matter. The summer sun hung low now, casting warm amber light through the diner windows. The same booth where Frank had once sat alone was no longer a quiet island. It buzzed softly with life, a middle-aged vet from Nevada chatting about fishing, a young Navy woman passing through town, Sarah refilling mugs like she always had, with a grace that made you feel like the diner itself had a heart. You'd hardly recognize it from the day of that infamous video. But healing doesn't look like fireworks, it looks like routine. It smells like brewed coffee. It sounds like stories you've heard before, but this time, you actually listen. Frank was adjusting too. Slowly. You could see it in the way he stood straighter. How he started wearing cleaner clothes, donated, sure, but chosen by him. He started shaving again. He no longer scanned the room in quiet defense, and every once in a while, when things quieted down, he smiled. Colonel Carter and Major White came back once a week. No uniforms, just friends checking in. They didn't need grand reunions anymore. What they valued now was steadiness, proof that their fellow veteran wasn't just remembered, but rebuilt. One Tuesday morning, Frank brought in a letter. He handed it to Sarah without a word. It was typed neatly on aged paper, the kind you only see in military files or time capsules. I found this in my pack, Frank said. Was supposed to be delivered if I didn't make it. I never opened it till now. Sarah unfolded it carefully. It was from Frank's commanding officer. A commendation for outstanding service, written in the kind of language that made even modest acts feel monumental. At the bottom was a line that said, Miller's work saved lives, though he'll probably never mention it. Sarah looked up. You really never did, huh? Frank shook his head. Didn't feel like it mattered anymore. Well, she said, tucking the letter into a frame behind the counter, it does now. Kyle, meanwhile, had been working too. He started a small podcast, of all things. But not the flashy kind. He called it Booth 7, named after Frank's original seat, and interviewed veterans about the mundane, miraculous pieces of their service. No sponsors. No trending clips. Just dignity. He even had Frank on once. Tell me something no one ever asked you, Kyle had said. Frank took a long sip of coffee and replied, why I never left town. Kyle blinked. Why didn't you? Frank stared out the window. Because I wanted someone to notice. Not to pity me. Not to rescue me. Just to ask why. Kyle didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. That's why I'm here, he finally said. And that was enough. Brenda changed too. At first, she kept her head down, offering free coffee and mumbled thanks. But soon, she started hosting community nights, open mic stories from veterans, open meals on holidays, job fairs linked to veteran support groups. She even spoke on a local panel once, openly admitting how she'd fired someone based on internet noise. I believed comments more than people, she said. That won't happen again. Sarah returned to her job with a new sense of purpose. She became a sort of quiet sentinel, listening for the sound of loneliness before it could grow too loud. She always kept a slice of pie ready in the back, just in case someone came in looking like Frank did that night. It became a kind of tradition. If you saw a single candle flickering at a booth, you knew someone had been remembered. Frank turned 76 that October. This time, it wasn't silent. Brenda shut down the diner for an hour. Vets came in from nearby counties. People who'd watched the story unfold online sent cards and donations. Sarah made his favorite, apple pie with a cheddar crust. There were no speeches, no parade, just the clink of forks, the murmur of laughter, the warmth of human decency. He stood to say one thing, and only one: thanks for not letting me disappear. So, what's the point of all this? Why tell a story about a tired man, a lost birthday, and a coffee-stained diner. Because this isn't just about Frank, this is about every person you've walked past without looking. Every vet sitting on a bench, holding a bag of everything they own. Every young person whose laughter covers up a fear they don't understand yet. It's about the war that happens after the war, the battle to be seen, respected, and heard when the uniform is long gone. Frank didn't need a medal. He needed a moment. And Sarah gave it to him. So before you scroll past the next post about someone down on their luck, before you laugh at someone's quiet sadness just because you don't understand it, before you fire someone because a trending video tells you to, ask, listen, look again, because kindness isn't always loud, but its echoes carry further than you think. And now, as the lights dim and the coffee cups are cleared, you find yourself thinking about that corner booth, booth 7, where a forgotten man became unforgettable. You picture the faded photos on the counter, the steam rising from chipped mugs, the gentle flicker of a birthday candle that once meant everything to someone who thought he had nothing left. It's easy, in this world of rapid noise and short memories, to believe that impact must come from grand gestures or viral trends, but maybe the deepest changes come quietly, from a slice of pie, from a waitress who refuses to look away, from an apology that actually means something. You see, veterans don't always wear their stories like medals. Sometimes, they carry them like burdens. Sometimes, they bury them so deep, it takes a stranger's kindness to dig them out. So if you've ever felt unseen, know this, your story still matters. And if you've ever had the chance to help someone rediscover theirs, do it. Because the next time you pass by someone sitting alone in a booth, you might just be walking past a chapter of history. And you might be the only one left who can turn the page. Thanks for spending this time with me. Now, breathe in deep. Let it go slowly. The world can wait for a little while. Sleep well.